Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English with Eva podcast.
From Smart English Studio, real English through warm, natural conversations.
I'm Eva.
And I'm Alex.
And today's lesson feels very right for slow listening because we're talking about something small, ordinary, and somehow much bigger than it looks.
Coffee.
Yes, coffee. Warm, familiar, comforting, sometimes emotional, sometimes necessary, and for some people, almost a relationship.
A very serious relationship protected at all costs.
Yes.
And if you've ever said, please don't talk to me before my first coffee, or if you've ever spent more money than you planned in a cafe just because you wanted to sit somewhere quiet and breathe for half an hour, then this lesson is very much for you.
Because today, we are not only talking about coffee as a drink.
We're talking about coffee as a feeling, a routine, a comfort, a little survival tool, a social moment, and sometimes even a part of identity.
And while we talk, you'll hear lots of natural English words and phrases in context.
So just relax and enjoy the conversation. You do not need to catch every single word. Listen for the feeling, listen for the ideas, and let the English come to you naturally.
And later in the lesson, we'll also have a calm phrase tour where we go back through some of the loveliest words and expressions from today.
And before we begin, if you enjoy learning English this way, through calm, real-life conversations that sound natural and easy to stay with, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
It really helps us keep making these lessons for you.
And now, let's talk about coffee.
You know, I really think coffee is one of those things that looks very small from the outside, but feels much bigger in real life.
Yes, I completely agree, because when people say they love coffee, they are usually not only talking about the taste, they're talking about the whole feeling around it.
Exactly. The moment, the warmth, the pause, the comfort, the tiny little space it creates in the day.
And I think that's why coffee becomes a ritual for so many people.
Yes, not just a habit, but a ritual, a personal thing. The same mug, the same smell, the same corner of the kitchen, the same quiet moment before the day really begins.
That's such a good point, because rituals are not always dramatic. Sometimes they are very small, but still emotionally important.
Yes, and I think coffee is one of the clearest examples of that. Some people don't even realize how attached they are to it until one morning when they can't have it.
Then suddenly, the whole day feels wrong.
Not wrong, spiritually broken.
Yes, that sounds more accurate.
Because before coffee, some people are technically awake, but nothing inside has actually started yet.
That is painfully real. The body is there, the face is there, the person is moving around the kitchen, but the soul is still buffering.
Still buffering is such a perfect phrase.
It really is, and that's where coffee becomes more than taste. It feels like the beginning of function, the beginning of thought, the beginning of tolerance.
Tolerance for the day?
And sometimes tolerance for other people.
That's very honest.
It is. I think many people love coffee because it quietly protects the world from the version of them that exists before the first sip.
That version can be a little fragile.
Very fragile, easily offended by light, sound, other human optimism.
Yes, especially unnecessary morning cheerfulness.
Exactly. Someone says, "Good morning," and you're standing there like, is it? Is it really?
That is so real. And then the coffee starts to work, and suddenly life feels more possible.
Yes, the caffeine kicks in, your thoughts begin to line up properly, and your mood starts to return in a way that feels almost unfairly powerful for something in a mug.
That's true. And I think one reason people become so attached to coffee is that the comfort starts even before the first sip.
Yes, even making it already changes the mood a little.
Exactly. Boiling the water, hearing the machine, opening the jar, pouring it into your favorite cup, smelling it before you even drink it, the whole process is calming.
Yes, the process itself feels soothing. That's a lovely word for it, actually, soothing.
Because it's not dramatic happiness, it's more like your whole system settling down a little.
And I think people need that more than they realize. Tiny little moments that tell the body, you can relax for a second.
That's beautiful, actually.
Also, there is something about holding a warm cup with both hands that feels oddly protective.
Yes, almost childlike in a good way, like something simple is taking care of you for a minute.
And then the first sip comes, and for one tiny moment, everything slows down.
I think that's one of the real reasons people love coffee so much. The coffee matters, yes, but the pause matters too.
Sometimes the pause matters even more.
And it isn't only a morning thing. Some coffee feels very different. Some coffee arrives in the middle of a hard day.
Yes, afternoon coffee has a completely different personality.
It really does. Morning coffee says, "Let's begin." Afternoon coffee says, I know, just keep going."
That is such a good way to put it.
Because some coffee is just coffee, but some coffee appears exactly when you are tired, overwhelmed, disappointed, emotionally flat, or mentally crowded.
And somehow that one cup can feel like a real pick-me-up.
I love that phrase. Not a miracle, not a whole new life, just a little lift.
Yes, and a little lift is sometimes enough. Enough to answer the email, enough to finish the task, enough to stop feeling irritated by every sound in the room.
Or by people speaking too brightly near your desk.
A very serious workplace problem.
I remember one afternoon when I wasn't physically sleepy exactly, I was just mentally done. Not empty, but overloaded. Too many things open at once in my head.
That kind of tiredness feels heavier somehow.
Yes, it does. And I made coffee, sat near the window, and just stared outside for 10 minutes. I did absolutely nothing productive. But after that, I felt slightly more able to continue.
And I think that's the key. Coffee doesn't solve the day, it just makes the day feel a little less sharp.
A little less sharp. That's lovely.
Because some of the best things in life are not big solutions, they're just softeners.
Yes, small things that make life easier to carry.
And coffee can definitely be one of those.
But there's also a funny side to all of this. People often say, no, I just like coffee.
Do you? Or are you emotionally attached to a bean?
That's a brutal sentence.
But tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong, because when people try to cut back on coffee, it suddenly becomes clear that this relationship may be deeper than they were pretending.
Yes, cut back on coffee sounds so calm and mature in theory.
And so unrealistic by day 2.
Exactly. By day 2, you're looking at the coffee machine like it personally betrayed you.
And that's because when you drink less coffee, you are not only missing caffeine, you are interrupting a whole emotional routine.
That's such an important point. You're not only removing a drink, you're removing familiarity, timing, comfort, and a little structure.
Yes, a little part of the day loses its shape.
And that can feel strangely personal.
It really can. Coffee can become part of identity in a very quiet way.
Yes, some people aren't just people who drink coffee, they are coffee people.
A lifestyle with a mug.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole coffee shop side of this, which is almost a different subject by itself.
Yes, coffee at home is one feeling. Coffee in a cafe is another world entirely.
A good coffee shop can feel like a tiny safe world inside a noisy day.
That's such a lovely way to say it. The music is low, cups are clinking, people are talking but softly. Someone is reading, someone is pretending to work, someone is probably having a small life crisis next to a pastry.
That last one felt very specific.
Because cafes hold all kinds of people.
They really do. And sometimes the whole atmosphere just hits the spot.
Yes, that phrase is perfect here. When something hits the spot, it feels exactly right for that moment.
Sometimes it's not even the coffee itself. It's the window seat, the rain outside, the quiet noise, the fact that nobody's asking anything from you for 20 minutes.
Yes, a cafe can be one of the few places where you are allowed to be quiet, tired, thoughtful, or a little lost, and nobody asks you to explain it.
That's so true. You can sit there alone and still feel held by life somehow.
Alone, but not isolated.
Exactly.
And people bring very ambitious dreams into coffee shops too.
What do you mean?
You walk in thinking, today I will become organized, answer emails, reflect deeply, and possibly improve my whole life.
And then?
Then I drink half the coffee, look out the window for half an hour, and decide I've had a meaningful day.
Honestly, that still counts.
I think so too, and maybe that's part of the magic. Sometimes coffee is not about productivity at all.
No, sometimes it's just about how a moment feels.
Exactly. The drink matters, yes, but the feeling around it matters even more.
And I think that's where the real answer lives. People may love coffee, yes, but maybe what they really love is the life feeling that comes wrapped around it.
Yes, the warmth, the pause, the familiarity, the comfort, the pick-me-up, the cafe, the memory, the routine.
And the memory part matters too. Coffee can feel very nostalgic sometimes.
Absolutely. One smell and suddenly you are somewhere else.
Childhood mornings, parents in the kitchen, late night studying, your first office job, a specific cafe, a specific person, a specific season of life.
Yes, and sometimes it feels sentimental too. Not just memory, but memory with emotion still wrapped around it.
That's beautifully said.
I think that's why coffee can feel much bigger than coffee. It carries routine, comfort, mood, memory, connection, and identity all in one small cup.
And some of the most loved things in life are like that. Very ordinary on the outside, very full of feeling on the inside.
Yes, quiet things, small things, but not small in what they mean.
So maybe it was never just about the drink.
Maybe it was always about the moment wrapped around it.
The pause, the comfort, the familiar smell, the little reset, the safe corner, the memory.
And that first sip when life feels loud and then for one tiny second, everything settles.
Yes, that. Before we finish, let's slow down for a moment and take a little phrase tour through some of the loveliest words and expressions from today's conversation.
Yes, and these are not only coffee words. They're beautiful everyday English words too. Words for comfort, memory, routine, mood, and those small moments that stay with us.
Let's begin with ritual. A ritual is something you do regularly in a meaningful or personal way, not only because you have to, but because it gives shape and feeling to a moment.
For example, making coffee every morning became a quiet ritual she looked forward to.
Or, his evening walk is a small ritual that helps him slow down after work.
Repeat, ritual.
Ritual.
Next, a very gentle word, comforting. If something is comforting, it makes you feel calmer, safer, or more at ease.
For example, the smell of coffee in the kitchen felt deeply comforting.
Or, there was something comforting about sitting by the window with a warm drink.
Repeat, comforting.
Comforting.
Now let's look at familiarity. Familiarity is the feeling of knowing something so well that it feels trusted, known, and comfortable.
For example, there was a sense of familiarity in her morning routine.
Or, the familiarity of that cafe made him feel relaxed right away.
Repeat, familiarity.
Familiarity.
Another soft and useful word is soothing. If something is soothing, it helps you feel calmer, settled, or less stressed.
For example, the sound of the coffee machine was strangely soothing.
Or, she found the quiet cafe atmosphere soothing after a stressful day.
Repeat, soothing.
Soothing.
Now one of my favorite words from today, nostalgic. Nostalgic describes that warm, emotional feeling you get when something reminds you of the past.
For example, the smell of coffee made him feel nostalgic for childhood mornings.
Or, that rainy afternoon in the cafe gave her a nostalgic feeling.
Repeat, nostalgic.
Nostalgic. And a related word, sentimental. If something feels sentimental, it carries personal emotion or memory. It matters in a deeper emotional way.
For example, that old cafe still feels sentimental to her because she used to go there with her father.
Or, he kept the mug for sentimental reasons, even though it was chipped.
Repeat, sentimental.
Sentimental.
Now, a more serious word, dependence. Dependence means relying on something so much that you really feel its absence when it is not there.
For example, his dependence on coffee became obvious when he skipped it and got a headache.
Or, a small dependence can start as a habit and grow over time.
Repeat, dependence.
Dependence.
Now let's move to a phrasal verb, kick in. When something kicks in, its effect starts to happen or become noticeable.
For example, the caffeine usually kicks in about 20 minutes later.
Or, once the medicine kicked in, he felt much better.
Repeat, kick in.
Kick in.
Another useful phrasal verb, cut back on. To cut back on something means to reduce it, to have less of it than before.
For example, she's trying to cut back on coffee in the evenings.
Or, he decided to cut back on sugar after feeling tired all the time.
Repeat, cut back on.
Cut back on.
Now a lovely everyday phrase, a pick-me-up. A pick-me-up is something small that gives you more energy, improves your mood, or helps you feel a little better. For example, that afternoon coffee was exactly the pick-me-up I needed.
Or, a short walk in the fresh air can be a great pick-me-up.
Repeat, a pick-me-up.
A pick-me-up.
And finally, hit the spot. If something hits the spot, it feels exactly right for that moment. It gives you exactly what you needed.
For example, that warm coffee really hit the spot on a cold morning.
Or, after a long day, a quiet cafe and a soft drink just hit the spot.
Repeat, hit the spot.
Hit the spot.
Those were such lovely words today.
They really were. And I think that's because coffee is one of those small daily things that quietly carries so much feeling.
Yes, comfort, routine, memory, mood, and sometimes just a little help getting through the day.
So, as you go through your week, maybe notice your own little rituals, the familiar things that bring calm, comfort, or a small moment to breathe.
And if coffee is one of those things for you, we completely understand.
We really do.
And if you enjoyed spending this little coffee moment with us, don't forget to like the lesson, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who would absolutely agree that coffee is never just coffee.
And tell us in the comments, what does coffee mean to you? Is it comfort, energy, routine, memory, or just your favorite excuse to sit quietly for a while?
All very valid answers.
Take care of yourselves this week, and we hope you find a few small, comforting moments in your days.
This is Eva.
And this is Alex.
And you've been listening to Easy English with Eva podcast.
Bye!